Until the next and final Republican primary debate of 2015. And new polls show that Senator Ted Cruz is surging in Iowa. The Fox News poll, where Cruz now has the lead, shows him outpacing Trump by 2 points. The Des Moines Register has Cruz up over Trump by 10 points. Trump getting good news in the latest national poll, however. In this one from Monmouth, he's ahead of the pack by 15 points. The latest results set the stage for a make it or break it night tomorrow night in Vegas. Chris Direwalt is our Fox News digital politics editor, and Howie Kurtz is the host of Media Buzz right here on Fox. So, Chris, put those in perspective for us. It's ahead of Trump by 10 points in Iowa, but wow, what a poll for Donald Trump by Monmouth.
Well, look, you can preach it round or you can preach it flat, depending on which candidate you're boosting for. But here's the thing that all the polls agree on. Ted Cruz is doing that thing. And that's the thing that we have watched for a long time and predicted for a long time would come for him, which is a time when doctrinal conservatives, people who are into conservative ideology more than they are candidate personality, are going to gravitate to Ted Cruz. He is built for this space, and as you heard from Rush Limbaugh, as you heard from others, they want Ted Cruz protected, because if Donald Trump is not going to be able to go the distance, if he blows up Ted Cruz tomorrow night, if he comes out with hatchets swinging at Ted Cruz and bad things happen to the arguably most conservative, viable contender in this race, conservatives will be out of luck.
The thing is, Howie, it raises the stakes in a way we haven't seen before for Trump, he always goes after people who are threatening him, and he doesn't back down, and yet when you got Limbaugh and Levin saying, don't do this, what does Trump do?
Well, a lot of conservative pundits don't like Donald Trump, and he has managed to survive that. But look, it would be a real dilemma.
Those guys have been defending him.
No, those guys have been defending him on talk radio. If Ted Cruz finds himself under attack by Donald Trump, it will be a real dilemma for him, because he has been very disciplined in hugging this strategy of not wanting to alienate Trump's supporters.
No, it won't. I don't think you're right about that. Ted Cruz is going to do what he's been doing. Bear hug, laugh. The question is, what does Trump do? What does Trump do with these clear lines in the sand being drawn by Limbaugh and Levin?
I would put my chips in the Vegas casino on Donald Trump not calling Ted Cruz a bit of a maniac. He tends to be on better behavior at these big televised debates. He tends not to bonk the other candidates on the head when he's on a stage with 8 or 9 people. Now, I know Marco Rubio will go after Ted Cruz. We've seen this before. The 2 Cuban-American senators, both very good debaters, and Ted Cruz will go after Marco Rubio. But I think Trump may not attempt to deliver the knockout blow
that is true.
The
he does
comments
hold back
may suggest.
More in the debates, and then he gets on Twitter and something else happens. Chris, let's talk about, there are many other candidates in this race. What are the stakes for them?
Oh, I thought there was only one.
Does anybody rise above him? Is it all the Cruz-Trump show tomorrow night?
Well, the closer you get to the end for some of these fellas, the sadder and potentially more desperate it becomes for them. CNN broke their own rules to add another podium so that Rand Paul would be on the stage. And so will the people who are teetering near oblivion, will they act out in an effort to get attention? That's what happens in the past. But as Jeb Bush learned when he tried to take out Marco Rubio and took out his own self, swinging too hard and trying with these stilted takedown lines can sometimes lead you right to the candidate emergency room. So if you're a candidate who's thinking that you're going to have a, quote, breakout night, we're going to break out and it's going to be fantastic, it's probably not a good time for you.
How about Ben Carson, Howie?
Well, Ben Carson is in danger of slipping into the second tier, and given his soft-spoken demeanor in these debates and the questions about his depth of knowledge on foreign policy, I don't see him doing anything dramatic to turn around at least that perception. Now, Chris Christie back on the main stage in Vegas, and we've seen what he can do in a debate. Of course, he's way down in the national polls, getting a little traction in New Hampshire. To me, the canary in the coal mine is...
number 2 in New Hampshire now and has a key endorsement there, too.
Yeah. And a good performance there will certainly not hurt the New Jersey governor in New Hampshire. That's a state that's kind of built for him. But nobody's talking about Jeb. It's remarkable how far we've come in these fast-forward debates, how far Jeb has fallen, and there's not even any great expectation game going on. I think he has a hard time, as we have seen painfully, making his presence forcefully known in these debates.
Well, listen, we will be here with these guys for you tomorrow night with special programming after the debate, so you can get your, nice, way to get into the spirit, Direwalt. You will get your only fair and balanced coverage right here over on FNC, so we urge you to turn it back over and check us out. Thanks, guys. The biggest Muslim civil rights organization here in America is CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations. And they are in the news right now. Normally, what they do is press authorities what they're doing in this particular case is they're pressing for custody of that woman, that female terrorist's 6-month-old baby. So why is CARE so interested in where the female terrorist's 6-month-old baby is going? Andy McCarthy knows. He's a former federal prosecutor and National Review contributing editor. Andy, good to see you. So CARE was very quick to come to the microphones and very quick to make a legal stink about who's going to get the custody of that terrorist couple's 6-month-old. Why?
Because CARE is a Sharia promotion organization masquerading as a civil rights organization, and it's black-letter Sharia law that Muslim children can only be placed in the custody of Muslim parents.
And that's what they're pushing for on the record.
Yes, and
they're saying this baby needs to go to Muslim parents.
Right. Now, I brought along my handy-dandy Reliance of the Traveler, which is a classic manual of Sharia law that's actually been endorsed by very respected worldwide Muslim scholars, and it says very clearly that if a child is a Muslim, it is a necessary condition that the person with custody be a Muslim. And it goes on to explain that the reason for that is being a parent is a position of authority, and under Sharia law, a Muslim cannot be placed in the authority of somebody who is a non-Muslim. It's actually a theme that runs through all of Sharia law.
And so what does this tell us about CARE, which was an unindicted co-conspirator in a terror trial, which has been labeled a terrorist group by the UAE?
Right. Well, CARE sprung from the Muslim Brotherhood and the Brotherhood's Palestinian organization, Hamas, in the mid-1990s, around 1993. And its purpose is to be an apologist for Islamic supremacism.
So it's not a civil rights organization?
Well, it styles itself as one because that's very appealing in the West.
Because they're smart.
And it's worked. So the media refers to them as a civil rights organization. They almost never talk about their checkered history. But what they're about...
And they do put pressure. They put pressure on the administration. Right. They put pressure, they try, on the media. And we're hearing, I mean, the two stories may not be unconnected because the administration is lamenting about the pressure they're going to get from civil rights organizations if they start checking the social media of would-be immigrants.
Yeah, can you imagine that now? The Department of Homeland Security, which was set up to enhance Homeland Security after 9/11, right? They won't check the social media of nationals, as Brad said, outside the United States who don't have civil rights under the American Constitution.
Including nationals from Pakistan.
Right, from jihadists.
Who are attending radical mosques, radical schools, who have radical ties in their family. Right. Even they will not be checked, their social media.
Right, but this policy is totally consistent with the official Obama counterterrorism policy, which they call countering violent extremism. There's actually online, there are instructions to people who apply this, government officials who apply this strategy, and what they're told is not to associate conduct with either ideology or words, that we should focus solely on...
Online threats by somebody who is a known Muslim with extremist views, that you don't look at that. You got to look at conduct. Did they bomb anything? Have they attempted anything? Right.
And this is why, Megyn, that they purged the Islamic experts from, law enforcement, from the military, from the intelligence
we had the guy
community.
on our show last week who got kicked out, and he started getting investigated after he started to circle in on certain groups. Andy, good to see you.
Good.
Breaking tonight, new concerns that the American people are being endangered, thanks to an administration hell-bent on not offending anyone. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Tonight, we've learned that the Obama administration has been deliberately ignoring evidence related to whether those seeking entry into this country mean to do Americans harm out of a desire to be politically correct. As a result, immigrants like the female terrorist in San Bernardino, whose online postings made very clear she was an Islamic extremist, have been getting a free pass into the U.S., despite social media postings that make very clear they are potential killers. Today, President Obama went to the Pentagon to discuss efforts to defeat ISIS. Afterwards, he spoke but offered few, if any, new details. One thing he notably did not discuss was the news reports that his administration has been deliberately ignoring the social media accounts of foreigners who apply for an entry visa into the United States. Deliberately, I say. something American employers do with job applicants on a regular basis. But those charged with protecting us apparently decided this is not a good idea. The Homeland Security Department was reportedly worried about the optics of doing so, fearing it might look bad to check up on a foreigner's public profile, that it might anger some civil rights groups and create bad PR. This raises serious questions, considering that the female terrorist who murdered 14 Americans this month made her own radical views very clear online. In fairness to the administration, we have learned that she posted those under a pseudonym, and she kept her pages private. They were not available for public consumption. But how many others have slipped through the cracks, whose online behavior might have kept them out of this country if only we had bothered to look? Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge reports tonight from Washington. Catherine?
Megyn, tonight a Homeland Security official telling Fox News that Tashfeen Malik also used privacy settings to block content. And the official claimed there was no written policy against social media screening on visa applications, but it was only used when negative information came up.
It is routine for our consular officers to be able to examine social media presence when they feel it can round out and put a little bit more flesh on the bone of the information.
I think that the Department of Homeland Security has pushed back against those.
Malik exchanged messages about martyrdom and jihad with her future American husband and conspirator Saeed Farouk even before entering the United States last year, as an internal debate raged within the Homeland Security Department. With ABC News first to report, it came to a head in the spring of 2014 when Immigration and Customs officials pressed Secretary Johnson's deputies to allow social media screening on a regular basis. Contacted by Fox News, Johnson's spokesperson said the screening strategy has since expanded. Quote, over the last year, the department initiated 3 pilot programs to specifically incorporate appropriate social media review into its vetting of applicants. As a former member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council said, it only makes sense to use it, and government officials should stop throwing up investigative blocks.
We have the ability and capability to monitor social media to one extent or another. I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of like in the 80s, it would be saying basically the government can't watch TV, because that's the equivalent of social media for ISIS and how it spreads its narrative and spreads its message.
Separately, later this week, Secretary Johnson is expected to roll out an updated advisory system that reflects the high-risk environment where the threats are not specific, like we saw in California and Paris. Megyn.
Catherine, thank you. Joining me now with more, Brad Thor, a former member of the Homeland Security Department's Analytic Red Cell Unit and also best-selling author of the book Code of Conduct. Brad, thank you for being here. So they have the ability to do it. They choose not to because they don't want to offend anybody.
You know, there's no constitutional right to a visa, and there are no civil liberties issues with this. When you post on social media, it's public, even if you do throw up these privacy walls like this person was doing. I mean, Megyn, it is easier for a terrorist to get a visa than for a group with Tea Party or Patriot in their name to get a 501c3 classification from the IRS. This is ridiculous.
They're worried, they say, about 3 things. Bad PR, civil rights organizations, and civil liberties organizations giving them pushback. The question is, are they worried about Americans who are going to get killed by radical extremists who want to murder us?
Bingo. That's the issue here. We have a president, not a publicist, and he needs to act like one. And as far as civil liberties groups or civil rights groups, they can all jump right in the lake because they do not have any leg to stand on here. If you are a foreign national applying for a visa to come to this country, you are not afforded the protections of civil liberties and civil rights protections that American citizens or those who are physically in the country.
You're asking for a special privilege.
You don't get it. And by the way, this is a great tool. And I understand that Catherine is kind of moving this story forward with this issue about, well, it wasn't a written policy. Yet they were fighting about it internally at the Department of Homeland Security. This is shocking. It is shocking that you would not go to social media, particularly when DHS has been rabid since 2011 about looking for any anti-government talk on social media by Americans. This is a big issue. 2000 2009, even when Janet Napolitano headed the DHS, she put out a white paper saying that we had to watch out for veterans, people with Gadsden flags in the back of their trucks, pro-lifers, pro-gun people as being potential right-wing extremists and terrorists. So when Obama
think they're looking at their social media?
All the time. When the Obama administration wants to look for stuff, they find it, they even spin it. So this is a bunch of malarkey. And why is he so much more concerned over people applying for visas than protecting American citizens?
Okay, but here's what their other defense is. The numbers are too big. Last year, we had 10 million people come into the country on visas. Some 40,000 of those were on these K-1 marriage visas. So they don't have the time. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the money to have somebody sitting there doing the Facebook search, private, how do I get around that, and so on.
You got two choices. Number one, if you're dealing with people in a specific age group, let's say 18 to 34, they've all got social media accounts. Part of getting your visa should be opening up those accounts, turning over your passwords. Employers ask people for this a lot, and we've got over a third of the employers in this country that look at social media. And the other thing is if we've got that many people applying for visas that we can't check them, woo, let's dial it down and let's not process so many darn visas. This is what Trump was talking about. Let's put a pause until we can work out these problems, because protecting Americans is more important than giving visas to foreign nationals.
You know what else you could do? You could strike a deal. You could get Facebook to change its policies such that when you sign up for a Facebook account, you check a box saying, if I decide to immigrate into the United States, I agree to make all of my private profiles public and subject to review. And then the government doesn't have to do anything. You apply, you've already agreed to make it public, they can take a look at it, it's done. It's easy. And if you don't check the box, you got a problem.
There's just one problem with that idea, Megyn. It makes too much sense. You'll never get it past this administration.